Mainland China continues to beckon global investors, and this time, Chinese Premier Li Qiang, during the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, led a large delegation. There, he revealed that China's GDP growth in 2023 was 5.2%, using the opportunity to assure global investors that China's economic momentum is strong. However, there are suspicions abroad regarding whether this economic data truly reflects the real situation. Meanwhile, at the same time, Xi Jinping expressed a different tone in Beijing, emphasizing the need to strengthen financial management and develop financial systems with Chinese characteristics. This has created a significant air of skepticism internationally about whether China will create a friendly investment environment. Li Qiang is the highest-ranking Chinese official to personally attend the Davos Forum since President Xi Jinping in 2017. This time, he brought a massive delegation of 140 members, including Minister of Commerce Wang Wentao, People's Bank of China Governor Pan Gongsheng, and 10 other minister-level officials. This was a strategic move to launch a charm offensive and attract global capital. Choosing the Chinese market is not a risk, but an opportunity. Li Qiang reiterated in his speech, using past data to prove that investing in China is undoubtedly a good business. He highlighted that the return on foreign direct investment, FD, in China over the past 5 years reached 9.1%. However, he did not mention that this data was from April of last year and that China's FDI turned negative for the first time in the third quarter of last year. He also reaffirmed that China will continue to open up and value foreign investment, assuring that Chinese authorities are aware of the challenges faced by investors in China and are committed to solving them. However, during the luncheon organized by the World Economic Forum, there were no specific measures proposed to improve investor confidence. There are doubts about whether the economic data released by China truly reflects the situation. Recently, a delegation of Japanese business leaders visited mainland China to seek improvements in the investment environment, submitting a proposal to the Chinese authorities. The proposal suggested the withdrawal of measures suspending the import of Japanese seafood and increased transparency when applying the Counter-Espionage law. The proposal highlighted that Japanese public sentiment towards China has reached historically low levels, and there is a trend of Japanese companies being unwilling to invest. This news has sparked discussions among Chinese netizens, with some expressing patriotic sentiments and warning the Japanese delegation about respecting Chinese customs and sensitivities. The discussions include comments such as, "Our market does not allow advertisements with Japanese elements. Violations will be torn down, and the police station will intervene." In many pedestrian streets, wearing traditional Japanese clothing, kimono is not allowed. You must adhere to our customs and not harm our national sentiments. And in some public places, before speaking Japanese, please indicate that you are Japanese, or else you may face criticism from patriotic individuals. In conclusion, the economic data released by the Chinese government is met with skepticism, and recent interactions with a Japanese business delegation indicate concerns about the investment environment in China. The discussions among Chinese netizens reflect a mix of national pride and caution towards foreign investors. NTDA Xi'an Time News, January 26, 2024. Recently, an economic delegation composed of Japanese business leaders visited mainland China in an attempt to improve the investment environment, sparking discussions on Chinese social. On January 25, Chinese Premier Li Qiang held talks with the chairman of the Japan-China Economic Association, Takeo Hentona, and the chairman of the Japan Business Federation, Masakazu Tokura, at the Beijing Great Hall of the People. According to reports from the Japanese Kyodo News, the Japanese delegation submitted a proposal to the Chinese side, expressing the hope that the Chinese authorities would lift the suspension on the import of Japanese seafood and increase transparency when applying the anti-espionage law. The proposal stated, "The sentiment of the Japanese people towards China has reached its lowest point in history, and there is a trend among Japanese companies to refrain from investing." This news has sparked heated discussions among Chinese netizens. Some criticized the Japanese delegation, saying, "As a patriotic blogger, I feel it is necessary to warn the Japanese delegates. One is our market does not allow advertisements with Japanese elements. Tearing them down is required, and the police station will send people to supervise if violated. Two is many of our pedestrian streets do not allow wearing kimonos. You must respect our customs and not harm our national sentiments. Three is in some public places, you should declare that you are Japanese before speaking Japanese. Otherwise, you may face criticism from us patriotic individuals." Netizens also remarked, "Just ask yourselves if you're scared or not, or just turn back home. Our economy is doing well. We don't need you." The newly amended anti-espionage law in China has come into effect, raising concerns about increased risks for individuals and foreign businesses. China passed the revised anti-espionage law in April 2023, and it officially took effect on July 1. The new law prohibits the transmission of any information related to national security. The U.S. government and legal experts have expressed concerns, stating that the expanded interpretation of the law's provisions has led to a relatively ambiguous definition of espionage activities. In the future, foreign companies operating in China may face heightened risks as the newly amended anti-espionage law poses potential challenges. The law not only impacts foreign enterprises but also raises risks for individuals interacting with foreign companies. Tang Xi, a senior researcher at Yale Law School, stated that the modifications to the law might not create significant differences. The issue lies not in the lack of legal sources for national and public security, but in whether or when authorities choose to target individuals. This law provides them with comprehensive authority under the pretext of combating threats to national security. Some scholars have pointed out that the new version of the anti-espionage law broadens the interpretation of espionage activities, potentially classifying normal business activities as illegal. While the international community interprets this law as targeting foreign individuals, experts emphasize that Chinese citizens with connections to foreign individuals or institutions also face risks. China is estimated to be detaining around 300 American citizens, according to a report citing information from the Voice of America. As reported by the Central News Agency, these individuals are reportedly forced to confess while in custody for self-preservation. On September 12, 2023, Voice of America reported that Peter Humphrey, a British national who had worked for several media outlets in China and founded a risk management consulting firm, is now voluntarily assisting many foreign citizens and their families who were detained by the Chinese government. Based on his interactions with the families and the accounts of those released, Humphrey speculates that there are approximately 300 American citizens detained or arrested in China. He mentioned that there are 20 to 25 individuals in just the Qingpu prison, and there are prisons in Chongqing and Xi'an that detain foreign criminals, with even more in Guangdong province. According to the information, Guangdong's Dongguan prison detains the most foreign criminals nationwide. Other prisons, including Yanqing prison, also hold foreign inmates. The report notes that in June of the same year, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated that the United States and China were continuing discussions on the release of 3 American citizens wrongly detained by China: Lin Dawei, Li Kai, and Mark Swiden. Humphrey pointed out that no American citizen in China has received a notarized and transparent trial. Many individuals' indictments are riddled with loopholes, and none of the trials meet the standards of a U.S. court. He believes that stating only 3 American citizens are wrongly detained by China downplays the scale and impact of the situation. Humphrey calls on the U.S. government to seek a large-scale prisoner exchange agreement with China, as there is a considerable number of Chinese citizens arrested in the United States, including those accused of leaking U.S. intelligence. China has sentenced a 78-year-old American citizen to life imprisonment on charges of espionage, according to a report by the New York Times Chinese website on May 16, 2023. The specific allegations were not disclosed by the Chinese court. And this case is the latest in a series of espionage investigations carried out by Chinese authorities amid growing concerns about foreign influence. The Suzhou Intermediate People's Court announced in a brief statement that Liang Qianyun had been convicted of espionage and sentenced accordingly. The statement mentioned that Liang Qianyun had been placed under coercive measures by national security officials on April 1, 2021, without specifying the exact charges or providing details about the detention or trial. The court also ordered the confiscation of his personal property worth 500,000 yuan. According to the statement posted on the court's social media account, Liang Qianyun held a U.S. passport and was a permanent resident of Hong Kong. In China, trials involving charges of espionage or other sensitive political issues often take place in secret, with proceedings not disclosed to the public and media. The courts are under the control of the ruling Communist Party. China has recently intensified its efforts to counter what it perceives as a growing espionage threat, conducting surprise searches, inspections, and arrests targeting individuals and businesses with foreign connections. In March, the Chinese government detained a senior executive from a Japanese pharmaceutical company on charges of espionage. Last year, authorities arrested a senior editor of a Chinese Communist Party newspaper who was having lunch with a Japanese diplomat, with the editor's family claiming he was accused of spying for Japan or the United States. Chinese officials have conducted surprise searches of offices and questioned staff at American consulting companies, such as McKinsey Company and Bain Company. Recently, state media reported a crackdown on the consulting industry under the pretext of national security, specifically mentioning consulting firm Kroll with offices in New York and Shanghai. China's state broadcaster, China Central Television, accused Western countries of stealing intelligence in key industries, including defense, finance, energy, and health, as part of a strategy of containment and suppression against China. Last month, China approved amendments to its anti-espionage law, expanding the types of activities that could lead to the imprisonment of foreigners. Experts say the amendments, effective in July, may criminalize a range of routine activities related to information gathering, including the work of journalists and due diligence investigations conducted by various companies. Foreign businesses have begun reevaluating their operations in China and strengthening protections for their employees. The Japanese government has called for the release of a Japanese citizen who was arrested in China for allegedly violating Chinese domestic laws. Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno confirmed in a press conference that a Japanese man in his 50s, detained since March 2023 for suspected legal violations in China, was arrested in mid-October. In June 2023, the U.S. State Department's deputy spokesperson, Patrol, stated, "We will continue to pressure the People's Republic of China, urging them to allow foreign individuals, including journalists, non-governmental organizations, scholars, researchers, and businesses, to operate freely in a safe and open working environment, free from harassment and intimidation." In another report by New Tang Dynasty Television on January 27, 2024, it was confirmed by Chinese authorities that a British executive, Ian J. Stones, who had worked in China for 40 years, was arrested for alleged espionage. Stones, a former executive at major U.S. companies like General Motors and Pfizer, had established his own consulting company. He was arrested in 2018, and the news of his detention was only revealed in January 2024. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs did not provide specific details about the charges. Stones had previously written an article extensively discussing the lack of transparency in the Chinese government, citing so-called internal documents. In April of the previous year, China revised its so-called anti-espionage law, with the new law having a vague and broad definition, expanding the interpretation of espionage activities. This includes behaviors such as joining spy organizations and conducting cyber attacks against national security facilities. Foreign enterprises in China are facing increased risks due to these expanded interpretations. U.S. counterintelligence officials had previously warned American executives about the risks of doing business in China. Under the threat of the anti-espionage law, global funds are reducing their investments in China, and Hong Kong is being affected. Bloomberg conducted an analysis based on holdings reports from 14 U.S. retirement funds with assets exceeding $500 million and invested in Chinese stocks. The majority of retirement funds have successively divested from Chinese stocks. Among them, CalPERS is California Public Employees Retirement System, one of the largest pension investors in the United States, and the New York State Common Retirement Fund have been reducing their investments in the Chinese market for 3 consecutive years. Some funds are even in the process of completely withdrawing from the Chinese market. In December 2023, the Missouri State Employees Retirement System instructed its employees to withdraw all global public equity investments currently held in China. This trend may be influenced by the amendments to the anti-espionage law, which broadens the scope of activities that may pose legal risks for foreign investors. Fund managers and investors may choose to reduce their investments in the Chinese market due to concerns about legal risks or even completely divest from certain holdings. Hong Kong, as one of the global financial centers, is also experiencing the ripple effects of this trend.